Hello everybody, today I'm going to be talking about who is the best boxer in the world, pound for pound. We are going to completely ignore any single sort of resume, achievements, greatness factor, and we're just going to be talking about the skills and a little bit of the physical attributes, because things like speed and reflexes massively impact the skills you can use. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. I've got 5 names in mind. Those 5 names are Terence Crawford, Naoya Inoue, Alexander Usyk, Dimitri Bivol, and Jesse Bam Rodriguez. So I'm going to start off with... who should I start with? Go on, we'll work from the top down. Start with Usyk. Usyk, in terms of skill, everybody knows him. Very fast southpaw, very technical, very picturesque, sort of like the Soviet style. If you say Soviet style to someone who wants boxing, they're going to picture either Usyk or Bivol, maybe Kovalev. It's the sort of jab-heavy rhythm step. They want to get in and out of range, land a couple of shots, and leave at an angle. And I think the best thing for those fighters to emulate from Usyk would be how he escapes the clinch, because that rhythm step, it works great, but it's a rhythm, it's rhythmic, it's in the name. If you can get hold of the clinch against somebody like that, they are going to struggle, because they need that rhythm to build up the rest of their offense. If you're just flitting your leg sort of back and forth between your opponent without moving your actual, your upper body, your head, you're not moving that rear foot back with it, you're not playing with range. You're basically just hampering your base. And that isn't really a problem in other martial arts. Like karate, it's a great thing to do. Kickboxing, taekwondo, Muay Thai, all the kicking ones, even MMA to a degree. Rhythm steps are a lot more useful than they are in boxing, because you can, you bring your foot back to your stance, you can snap it up into a teep, you can snap it to a body kick. I'm sure there are guys out there who can do it to leg kicks. Not in boxing. In boxing, that rhythm step is one, it's potentially a tell, but any potential tell is also then a potential trap, so I don't see that as a downside. I see it more as it's more of a thing with wasted time, because if you have to specifically use that step to glide, to set up your offense, and they time you while your rear foot is back, you then have to realign your base and then defend, which is valuable time. And if they only throw two shots and they land both of them, you've lost that exchange before you even got started. And it's pretty rough. But a guy like Usyk, who does use it as a trap, and the next guy we talk about definitely uses it as a trap, Dimitri Bivol, I think it's a very valuable skill for him to have. I think if you look at his best performances, you've got Joshua 1 in that performance. He used his backhand beautifully to set up straight left counters. He used his lead hand to sort of check across Joshua, touching his back glove. Second he felt movement, he would then move his lead hand and sort of drift away to Usyk's left. Usyk would sort of step over to his left and come back with the left hand, which is beautiful stuff. And if you want to see a footwork performance that is all about economy against an opponent who is definitely not going to let you use economical footwork, in the sense that Joshua is massive and he hits very hard and he's quite fast and he's going to try and knock you out at some point, Usyk nailed it. There's a guy on a boxing forum, and he's called Mac McGrain, and he said that Usyk took the perfect amount of steps against Joshua. I don't know about that, but I think that the point of that, the sentiment of that sentence is, I think he hit the nail on the head. I think in terms of economical footwork, while still doing everything you need to, I don't think you're going to find a better Usyk performance than that. And then when you add in his upper body movement, his natural... No, I can't even say it. It's definitely an experience gap, but it's not like a time spent boxing gap. They're probably pretty similar between Joshua and Usyk, but Usyk has had so many more fights. He's so well tuned. He's a machine, and it wasn't that his nickname at one point, the Machine. I don't know. Oh no, it was the technician, I think. But anyway, that is a perfect performance, and I think that version of Usyk sadly doesn't exist anymore. I think the older version of Usyk is a little bit slower, he's heavier, he doesn't bounce around as much, which I think is potentially a detriment against bigger guys. But then again, look at his last fight with Dubois, we'll talk about that. He is a master of using the open side or the open stance. And that, to anyone who doesn't know, I'll probably put a picture on the screen. It's essentially, if one fighter is a southpaw and the other is an orthodox, you have a closed side, which is their lead hands. Their lead hands and feet are very close to each other. They get in each other's way an awful lot, and when you try to attack that side, you are going to run into their back, their shoulder, elbow, arm, upper forearm, like sort of like the bicep, tricep area. It's going to be, it's hard to get a shot through on that side. It's doable, and when you land, it's devastating because they're not expecting it. It's hard. And me personally, I am a southpaw. Every time I've experimented going orthodox, that's where I've been caught massively unaware because I'm not used to defending that side. So I've, for example, stepped forward against a guy called Ali. He has thrown a left hook. I'm now in orthodox. Didn't, very much experimenting very early doors. He's hit me with this left hook. I didn't even know how he landed it because I had literally never been hit with one before, because I was constantly staying on the outside, as a southpaw, on the outside, using that closed side as a block for their left hand. And Usyk does this better than potentially anyone since, definitely anyone since Pacquiao, potentially anyone since Pernell Whitaker. He is a genius of this. And if you look at what he was doing to Dubois, he was using those angles as a southpaw, and Dubois could not get anything going. And Dubois has quite a few okay tools. His right hand is quite nice. His defense is terrible. His chin's not great. He's tougher mentally than I think most people give him credit for, but he isn't. Do you know what I mean? He's not Rocky Marciano. He's not going to get shot and get back up to win the fight. He is going to go down and stay down. And Usyk very much exploited that. He backed away at an angle, let Dubois step in after him, turned over this left hand, my bad, and absolutely splattered Dubois. And I think that is probably the best performance. I think this is the last great performance we'll see from Usyk. I think from now on it's all downhill. And that, to me, is the bottom line. He's probably the most accomplished of these five. In fact, no, he's definitely the most accomplished of these five. He has proven the most throughout his career. His amateur career is the best out of the five of them. And ultimately, I think if you were to sit down with me and ask, who do you think of these guys is best at boxing? Who understands it best? I think I would be hard-pressed not to say Usyk. I think Usyk is the guy. But for me, he's not number one anymore. I think he was a few years ago. I don't think he is now. I think he's slipped a little bit. And a part of that, I think, is the fact he's gained a lot of weight. I don't mean like he's gotten fat. I mean he's settled into heavyweight, and he's a worse fighter for it in a vacuum. So what I mean by that is you compare Usyk at 200 pounds cruiserweight, where he's more like 215. He's very hydrated, very fast, very bouncy. He's a younger man, and he is lethal. He's like a cat, but not at heavyweight. At heavyweight, he's more flat-footed, and he's more pressure-based. He hits a lot harder, I'll say that. Definitely hits a lot harder. But his hand speed isn't as fast when he's rotating into punches. When he's throwing arm flurries, which he does quite a lot, he is not as technically sound when he does that, but more specifically, he is still very fast. But they don't do much. They just flash glove in the other guy's face, and the judges go, ooh, look at that. Whereas in terms of creating setups and opportunities, or even just hurting the other guy, getting their respect, it doesn't really do much. What it can do for Usyk, and he did this against, what's his name? Michael Hunter. He did it against Michael Hunter, and he did it against Tony Bellew. He throws these flurries that are not very committal. He's quite far away as he throws them. He's in range, but he's quite far away, so he can see counters coming, and he uses that to figure out their defensive tendencies. And against Hunter, if you look at some of the combos in the first couple of rounds versus in the last couple of rounds, you can see he has adjusted where he's going to throw, knowing that's where Hunter's head's going to be, and he tags Hunter a lot. And Hunter in today's game has got very good head movement for a guy that big. He's also quite small. He was quite small at cruiserweight. He's continued to eat since he fought Usyk, and his career's not really gone the way everyone thought it was going to. But he was a highly touted guy at the time, and Usyk annihilated him, removed that hype right up until he drew with Povetkin. And I think that Usyk is... I'll rank him at the end, but he's a great fighter with a ton of cool abilities. He's definitely the best heavyweight I've ever watched, although I'm only 22 and I missed quite a lot of the good ones. He's definitely the best heavyweight I've ever seen. He's definitely the best cruiserweight I've ever seen, and at his peak, I think he's probably the best fighter I've seen live. But he isn't at his peak anymore. He's not. So I'll rank them at the end, but expect Usyk to be high. Maybe not top 3. Well, I mean, they're all high. These are the 5 best fighters in the world, but I struggle to see Usyk getting top 3, but we'll come to that later on. Next up, Dmitry Bivol. Dmitry Bivol is he undisputed? No, I don't think he is. I think they stripped Bivol to make Benavidez champion, which is fucking dumb, but I'm not going to get into that. Dmitry Bivol is essentially undisputed, is what I'll call him. He's a fantastic boxer puncher. He's got a very rhythm-based style, which I alluded to previously. He's definitely going to be a problem. He is... Well, I say he's going to be a problem. There's no one left for him to fight. He's beat everyone except Benavidez. And, actually, no, he's not beat everyone, but he's beat all the good ones. He's beat all the good light heavyweights around, and Canelo. And he's a problem. He throws very, very nice combinations, like 8, 9, 10 punch combos against Canelo, who at the time was probably the best counter-puncher in the world. And he couldn't do anything because of Bivol's absolutely beautiful work at controlling range. I'm terribly sorry about the plane that's going over my head. I live near an airport and there's nothing I can do about that, so yeah, very sorry. But Bivol, in fact, I'm going to start with what's super obvious about Bivol. His footwork. Bivol's footwork. Anyone who's boxed and have been around gyms, they've probably had to shadow box on top of a tyre, and it looks like Bivol has never stopped doing that. He's so bouncy, he's shifting his weight back and forth. He has quite a long stance, like his toes, so if you look at your feet in your stance, his back toes and his front heel are quite far apart from each other in terms of like vertically. So his lead foot is quite far ahead of his head, and his rear foot is quite far behind him, but there isn't much horizontal distance between them. He's got quite a narrow but long stance, bladed, as most people would call it. I might even throw a picture up just to show you what I mean, because I didn't explain that very well. But he is beautiful at using that stance, to present opportunities, because they often think he's a little bit closer than he is. He's great at using that stance to do half steps, and that rhythm step that I mentioned, and he uses those 3 things to set things up, and it is quality. And what was the fight I watched recently? Lyndon Arthur. Bivol versus Lyndon Arthur. In that fight, Arthur come into that fight with little more than size and a jab, and Bivol knew that. So Bivol smartly jabbed with him. Everybody's heard the old adage, jab with a jabber. You don't hook with a hooker, but you do jab with a jabber. That's a good adage. It's not perfect, but it's very good to keep. You do not want to jab with a counter jabber. But anywho, he jabbed with Lyndon Arthur, and Lyndon Arthur's jab could not match Bivol's. And so what Bivol started doing was he started jabbing, maybe once, maybe twice, and as soon as he got a sense that Arthur was going to come back with the jab, he would then turn that jab into a lead hook, which he does quite a lot. And he turns that over, splits Lyndon Arthur's counter jab with a lead hook that he just turned over from a jab. So what I mean by that is, Bivol's going to throw 2 jabs. Lyndon Arthur's going to counter. Bivol's 3rd jab is actually going to be a left hook, and that left hook is going to counter Lyndon Arthur's jab. And he did this for 12 fucking rounds. And he kept on doing it. And every time Arthur tried to try something new, Bivol would pop him to the body with a right hand, and he would work into these combinations from a rhythm. And that rhythm, it predicates everything, and it comes from his feet. And that rhythm controls how quickly he's going to move his head, controls how quickly he's going to shift left and right, controls how quickly he's going to move. It even really controls the flow of his punches. But I think that's more of like a circadian rhythm's probably not. No, that's the sleep cycle. Is basically once Bivol is in that rhythm, everything comes from it. He's not. His feet and upper body are very much attached in terms of rhythm. Whereas if you look at someone like Roy Jones Jr., his feet, in terms of like rhythm and that sense of his feet were basically doing one thing while his upper body did an entirely different thing. And if you were to take a video of that, cut him in half at the waist and just watch the upper body, just watch the lower body, you could probably say that wasn't even the same fight, because that's just what Jones did. His upper body and lower body were almost entirely separated, and yet it worked fantastically. Obviously, there are moments where Jones would come back into using his entire body at once, but if you look at how he fought against James Toney, he would be throwing left hooks out of position, trying to get James to counter, just so he can then run past him with the right hand and then appear behind him. And it's fantastic stuff. It's fantastic stuff. But Bivol is not Jones Jr. Bivol is almost entirely the opposite. If Jones Jr. has no rhythm, Bivol has an infinite amount of rhythm. His rhythm is everything. And I think that's potentially a weakness. It's obviously, it builds everything about him. He's such a wonderful fighter that you wouldn't expect the thing that make him so good to be a weakness. But I think if Bivol was in there with someone capable of breaking that rhythm, it would be a huge problem. And I don't think you have to go very far into the past to find the guys who are capable of doing that. I'll name 3 of them right now. None of them are real light heavyweights. Andre Ward, Joe Calzaghe, Bernard Hopkins. All 3 of them would be able to break Bivol's rhythm and give him a horrible time. In fact, I'd probably pick all 3 of them to beat Bivol. But I wouldn't pick any version of Beterbiev to beat Bivol, because I watched the first fight and I thought Bivol won. I watched the second fight and I thought Bivol won. I come away from both of those events feeling like Bivol was the much better fighter, even though Beterbiev's quite past it. But at no point in those fights did Beterbiev look like he was going to break Bivol. And that's the difference for me between Beterbiev now and Beterbiev then, was that Beterbiev then wanted to break you. And I saw no indication that he's capable of doing that to a guy like Bivol, whose cardio is fantastic. He's so fast, he's got such good reflexes, and I really don't think that's a good matchup for Beterbiev, in the sense of Bivol himself isn't good for Beterbiev. I think the style, if someone was to recreate what Bivol did and do that against Beterbiev, he'd probably destroy them, but I think Bivol's just not. I don't think that's a winnable fight for Beterbiev, in the sense of he could win. I'm saying that, in fact, that was a bad choice of words. Bivol definitely could lose to Beterbiev, but I wouldn't expect him to. Now, I've rambled on for Bivol for a little bit less than I have about Usyk, but Bivol's less interesting than Usyk, so I'm going to move on to Crawford. Crawford is the pound-for-pound number 1 right now, in the sense of everything, in the sense of like his, there's another old adage, I'm coming out with all the cliches, you're only as good as your latest win, or you're only as good as your last fight. Well, he just beat Canelo, and he did it moving up like 20 pounds, and he's, it was 14 pounds, he moved up a stone, beat Canelo, absolutely whitewashed him. I don't believe there's any case for Canelo winning that fight. If anything, I think there's more of a case of a shutout than Canelo winning that fight. I had it 10 rounds to 2, or 9 rounds to 2 with 1 even, something like that. And the bottom line is that Crawford absolutely outskilled him. It was a great game plan. A good friend of mine, Greek guy, Joachim, he told me that he noticed that Crawford didn't switch his stance once in that fight. He used the jab unbelievably well. Positionally, which I haven't spoke about yet, but Usyk's great at this as well, is he is going to use movement and angles to specifically deny you one thing at a time. So against Canelo, he knows that Canelo likes to throw an overhand and then an uppercut. So what did he do? Crawford moved to his right as a southpaw, pivoting towards the closed side, which denied the open side counter, which is the big overhand for Canelo. That's his big right hand. And so Canelo would throw that. If he wanted to land it, he would have to step over and pivot as he threw, which is terrible. Nobody wants to be doing that unless you're Manny Pacquiao. Or he would then have to shuffle into position and then throw it, which is what he tried to do, because that's what a good fighter should do. The only problem is that Crawford never gave him that position. And so when Canelo went to his second option of the left hook, where he tried to go to the body, tried to go to the head, Crawford just stuck to his arm in the same way a fighter in kickboxing or Muay Thai would stick to a kick, or a wrestler would stick to a kick in MMA. He stuck to him, used that to get the clinch, grabbed hold, and then used the clinch to do quite... I'd have to rewatch it to be absolutely positive, but there was a couple of times where he turned Canelo and let himself get back into sort of like the open ring instead of being on the ropes, or he would just simply shut Canelo down, land a couple of shots, put up his high guard, and then leave the clinch. And in that sense, he kept on winning exchanges, and those exchanges added up into rounds, and those rounds eventually were a complete masterclass decision. And I think if you're comparing the last performance of each of these fighters, Crawford's is the best. It is the best. Although we'll talk about Bam Rodriguez, because his was great too. But I think in terms of being a great performance, you've got to look at Crawford and say his was the best one. He's rightfully pound for pound #1 right now. He's absolutely earned his flowers, and he's so vicious. He's such a cool fighter. But I think what I'm going to talk about now, yeah, go on, we'll get into it. Crawford's versatility. I think, and I'm not just someone who's with no idea about the history of boxing saying this, I have seen thousands of fighters. I think he might be the most well-rounded fighter of all time. And I don't mean he has the most individual skills. I don't mean he can fight in all manner of styles. What I mean is that if there is a game plan that will get you beat, or that you will struggle against, that's how Crawford's going to fight against you. And you can go back to any point in his career. You can look at him as early as Gamboa. He comes out, he knows Gamboa is smaller, he does not want to let Gamboa pressure him. So he comes out, framing with his lead hand, pushes him back to the ropes. As soon as Gamboa goes to throw a cross, then a left hook, Crawford would parry the cross from a southpaw stance, whip the right hook in over Gamboa's lead hook, and that's... I think that's how he knocks him out, actually. But either way, he was doing it all night, and that plan specifically ruined Gamboa. Ruined him. Then you can go, what's the next one that I remember him being very, very unique in? Viktor Postol. I think it's probably Viktor Postol, but what he did against Postol is he actually really reminds me of an old British fighter, like the old school style of upright, use the jab, lance at them. You can take a man apart with your jab, Jim Driscoll style. Crawford basically is one of the only modern fighters to actually have to face that, because Postol is very upright, his feet are quite close together, and he entirely relies on the jab. And he has a very good jab. He's not like Ryan Garcia, who lands 5 jabs against a farmer. He's a very good jabber. But that's all he's got. And Crawford just looks at him if that's all he's got, all I have to do is not let him use it. So he turns southpaw. And it's like I said about the closed side versus the open side. Or in this open stance matchup, all he had to do was hand fight and counter, and he did a wonderful job at it. He kept on moving, positionally turning Postol so that he steps over to his right, so that Crawford steps over to his right, pivots. Postol then has to step forward inside with the inside foot angle to try and catch up, or he has to chase Crawford, take the outside angle and step across. But what you do when you do that is your midline is very much in line for their backhand. And if you step across too far, you then lose the ability to use the jab, because your hand is not in a position to throw a jab. And you also then lose sight of the southpaw's left hand, which is absolutely devastating. You do not want that to happen. And so Postol was kind of stuck. He had to sort of follow Crawford around, which he don't really like doing. He had to keep on trying to lunge with the jab, which kept getting him countered. And when the jab, and he could only throw the jab when Crawford let him, because he'd hand fight. And he'd create windows of opportunity for Postol, which were just traps. Because he'd stop the hand fight, Postol would immediately go back to the jab, because that's what he's been waiting for, and Crawford would counter the jab with a straight left. It's a beautiful performance. And it's not the only one. So then I'll talk about pressure fighters, because he's fought a couple of them. You can look at him versus Jeff Horn. You watch that fight, you will see Crawford's wrestling background on show. He uses the clinch like an animal in that fight. He's not Roberto Duran. He isn't punching out the clinch. He isn't throwing combos. What he is doing is trapping his arms, holding his biceps, changing his head slot, specifically to control where Jeff Horn's head's going to be. And also, Jeff Horn is a brute in the sense of he isn't very skilled. He entirely relies on his physical abilities. And those physical abilities are definitely going to be... They will what troubled Crawford, because he's going to push him back, he's going to hurt him, and it's going to be pretty rough. And he's got a lot of stamina. So what did Crawford do? He clinched him. Guess what? Crawford's stronger. He knows how to clinch. He's going to hammer the body. That stamina is going to go out of nowhere. So is the toughness. A lot of people, they like to perceive chins as being yay or nay, like 100% or shit. You know, like, this guy's either got a granite chin or he's shit. And then when someone who they think has a granite chin gets hurt or knocked out, they're like, oh, maybe he's terrible. And I don't think it's as simple as that. I think it comes down to conditioning, how you take that individual shot, how you absorb the blow. And if you're tired, you're not as good at that. Like, it's one thing to take a body shot while you're fresh. It's quite another thing to take a body shot when you're in absolute agony and your lungs are burning, your legs are sore, you've got that horrible feeling in your calves from boxing for too long, and you know everything's, you know, shit, you're covered in sweat, you can barely see, blood all over you, you get hit with a body shot, it's rough. And Crawford, he dismantled Jeff Horn, and I think there's a very good chance that Crawford is the most adaptable and well-rounded fighter who's ever lived. He will take advantage of all of your problems, all of your skill deficiencies, he's going to take advantage of. And in that sense, there's not really anyone in boxing quite like him. There probably is ever, but there's definitely not right now. He is unique. And he's a very smart, adaptable fighter. On top of being incredibly talented, he hits very hard, he's very fast, very coordinated, his timing is great, his range sense is great, which makes up a little bit for his lack of defense. His defense isn't bad by any means, it's not Mayweather level. You know, he's not like Willie Pep, where, you know, you couldn't hit him with a bag of rice, as they say. It's okay, it's serviceable, but that is the only thing that I would say about Crawford. It's potentially not perfect. He isn't great at pressuring. He's not great at forcing high-pace action. And his defense is leaky. It's not bad. It's definitely not bad. It's very good. But it's not perfect. Those would be my only real criticisms of Crawford. And they're not really criticisms, because nobody's managed to exploit them. So that would be my view on Terence Crawford, and he is currently pound for pound number one. I'm very happy with that. I'm not here to tell you he's not. He is pound for pound number one. Next up, Naoya. Nope. Is that how you say it? Naoya Inoue. Inoue. That's how you say it. Inoue. The monster. The 122-pound champion. I think potentially undisputed champion. Again, not sure about that. But he had a job over MJ. He did a great job over MJ on the same night as Crawford versus Canelo. Watched that live. In fact, I watched it and found out midway through Ricky Hatton died, so I do remember it very well. And as far as a jabbing performance goes, it's probably the best. It's probably the best we've ever seen from Inoue. He smoked him. He smoked a guy who was very tanky, very skilled, comes from a rigorous amateur background. Uzbekistani amateurs are quality, underrated. Most people only think Cubans, Ukrainians. Uzbekistanis are right up there with them. And MJ was completely dismantled and outclassed. He did not stand a chance. Probably didn't win a round. Looked terrible in the clinch. One thing I remember from that fight is that the commentary was awful. They were talking about like how he trains his biceps to hit harder and shit like that. That's not real. Don't look, train your biceps. I don't care if you won't have guns. Just don't expect yourself to gain a shitload of power from doing it. It's not going to happen. If your biceps got bigger and you started to hit harder, it's probably all the steroids you were taking. So, final guy. No, sorry, not the final guy. I still got Bam. In a way, first things first, fantastic power jab. Snaps it out very well. He's very quick with it. He can throw it while he's moving. He can step with both feet at the same time, which is brilliant for pressuring. And another guy who used to be able to do that is fighting Harada, who naturally gets a lot of comparison to Inoue. And physically, tough as nails. You watch that first Donaire fight, that guy's chin is fantastic. He hits like a truck. Watch the second Donaire fight if you don't believe me. Or the Narvaez fight in his first title fight at 115, super flyweight. He's fantastic. And in terms of skills, I would say quite confidently that he is the best pressure fighter in the world. Because he doesn't pressure in the same sense of someone like Chocolatito or even someone like Derek Chisora, someone who's square stance, hands up, coming in, crowding, taking angles, not taking angles, cutting angles, trying to get you on the ropes in the corner so he can land haymakers. That's not Inoue. Inoue is going to suffocate you at a range. He's going to stay quite bladed. He's going to move in. He's going to look for an opening, specifically with the left hook to the body, and he's going to bonk you. It's going to be rough. It's a very, very, very bad fight for someone. Like, there are against Inoue, there are some things you need or you are not winning, and one of them is a great chin, and he's the first guy on this list who you can say that about. Fighters have gone the distance with Bivol and Usyk and Crawford, even when they didn't have a great chin. Nobody with a bad chin has gone the distance with Inoue yet. He finds you, and if he does, it's over. Actually, saying that, we don't really know if MJ's got a good chin, but I would say he does just from the fact he went the distance with it Inoue, but that's quite backwards logic, so you can deal with that however you want. But for me, I think he's got quite a good chin. But you also then need to be very fast, because Inoue is lightning quick. He has a larger skill set than you would imagine, because when you watch him, especially when I first started watching him, which I think was the start of his bantamweight run, yeah, it was, because he annihilated 3 champions in like 9 months in 4 rounds or something. And he doesn't look like a unbelievably skilled fighter in the sense of, like, he doesn't look bad. He does not. I'm not saying he's like Wilder, but he is very. There's much more layers to his game than watching a 2-round knockout would reveal. And I don't like the stretches of Inoue's career where he hasn't really fought anyone. Like, his entire 115 run was basically against nobodies. Quite a couple of years at bantamweight were a little bit like that. But those longer fights against people with no chance, they reveal a lot about Inoue's game, and he is fantastic. And he's one I'll probably have to rewatch, because I missed quite a bit of it. But he's got a nice rear hand parry. When he starts moving his head, he's very slick, but I think he has to be focused on moving his head for that to happen. When he wants to exploit openings, he is surgical. He will get in range, open it up, land the body shot, get out of there. And when he doesn't do that, it's because he thinks he's going to knock you out. And that usually works. It's interesting that we have a guy who's 125 pounds, whatever he is. And, well, it's 122 is the weight class, but he's probably more like 130 on fight night. It's very interesting that he has the same type of attitude towards finishing someone as most heavyweights do. Oh, well, I can stay here a little bit longer because he's really badly hurt, so I can hit him again. And that's Inoue's philosophy. And he's, tiny, which is fantastic. I love him. I love him. He probably is my favourite fighter on this list, actually. But I'm going to say it now, I think he's probably number 2. And a lot of what with Inoue, there's a lot less to talk about him skill-wise, because his physical attributes are so much more prominent. He's got the skills, but why use them when you can knock him out? Why do it? And that's my thing with Inoue, which, that does not exclude him from being the best fighter in the world. So we'll come back to that, as I say. Finally, we're on Bam. Whoa, 35 minutes in. Okay, Bam Rodriguez. Quickie, I'll talk about this one a bit more quickly. He has very nice head movement. It's a little bit inconsistent. He can make you look absolutely stupid, but then 5 seconds later, you could tag him with a huge punch. I really like that of all of the guys in his weight class, he has defeated the best of them from, like, the previous era. He's cleared out the old guard. He's come into his own, and he said, all these old guys, forget about him. We're going to knock him out, or we're going to beat the shit out of them. And that's what he's done. He beat Estrada, he's beat Rungvisai, Quadras, one of the Gonzalez's, but not Chocolatito, and he's sort of just done a bit of a clean-up of the old guys, and they should really consider retiring. I don't want to be a dick about it, but, like, Rungvisai is old, and he's been fighting forever. Estrada isn't very old, but he's been in wars forever. Chocolatito, same thing. He's old, he's a pressure fighter, he has been punched a lot. Surely he must have made enough money to retire. Anywho, Bam. First thing you gotta say, angles. He really reminds me of Orlando Canizales, and anybody who doesn't know that name should go and watch him fight, because his footwork, fantastic. With Bam, you are waiting to see a weird angle change, a crazy pivot, and then a counter out of nowhere, and you're gonna get that. And you're gonna get that in the sense that nobody else on this list is gonna do it the same way. Usyk, probably the closest, but it's not the same. He's very, very good. He slips punches great. He rolls under punches great. He uses that open side counter the best on the list, and he's very graceful. He's very talented, and I think as an overall package, he's potentially number 1. But I think I'm going to put him number 3. And there's a built-in power which you do not see from guys who start at 105, which is, it's a little bit of a thread through with him and Inoue. Inoue, much more devastating. But when Bam lands sharp, it's nice out. If you just look at his most recent fight with Martinez, it's the same thing. Martinez is a nasty pressure fighter. He walks forward. He wants to go to the body. He beat Ioka, who's one of the best guys in the last 15 years. He's crowded. He's trying to crowd Bam to the outside. He throws a nice right hook to the body against southpaws, which is dangerous for a southpaw, because that can really, really mess up your equilibrium. It's on that open side, as I said. It doesn't hit any it's not very damaging. Like, it's not going to hit an organ and mess you up, but it does accumulate. And he also throws a nice straight to the body too, which is very, very annoying to deal with for a pressure fighter. So what I'm getting at is that this was a potentially bad matchup for Bam, and all Bam did was just dismantle him, use the angles, use the counters, use the head movement, split him open with a constant jab, turned his lead hook over as a counter, and I really liked how he got the knockout, where he slid back, going to his left, into that open side counter where there's a ton of space. He's let the right hand fall short, and bam, no pun intended, he gets the knockout, and it's gorgeous. So, I'm looking at the notes. I've gone on for just under 40 minutes. We've got Bam, Bivol, Crawford, Inoue, and Usyk. For me, number 1 of these, it has to be Crawford. On a skill level, I think Crawford is potentially... Well, he's definitely the most complete here. I think he's probably a little bit less impressive than Usyk and Bam, but I think he's more impressive than Bivol and Inoue. I think he's more talented than Usyk and Bam. Actually, no, I don't think he is more talented than Bam. I just think he's much more proven at using these techniques against guys like Canelo, and that's why I'm picking him. I would then say, do you know what? I was going to put Inoue at number 2, but I'm going to put Bam at number 2. I don't think he beat Inoue, but I do think in a vacuum, like if you're just looking at him alone, I think he's a better fighter. I think there's more you can learn watching Bam than there is Inoue. Then I'm going to say, then I'll go Inoue, then Usyk, then Bivol. So if you want my top 5 fighters in the world right now, just for pure skills, just for pure ability, like the ability to, which of these is better at boxing? For me, it goes Crawford number 1, Bam number 2, Inoue number 3, Usyk number 4, and finally, last but not least, Dimitri Bivol. This has been sort of like my first episode of, I don't know if it's going to be a podcast, I don't know if it's not going to be a video, but it's probably going to be a podcast. This has been the first episode of it. Thank you guys if you've watched this far, and yeah, I'm sure I'll see you soon.